Today is a very exciting day for those who are interested in Dark Souls stuff, as not only a new trailer, which caused lots of feels, at least to me just with its name, was released, but also content from the newly released patch reveals some more peculiar names. However, before proceeding to the heaviest of spoilers, let's briefly tell a couple of words about the trailer. Basically the very words about the close of the Age of Fire kinda give this end of the story feeling, and such simple thing yet makes the DLC even more exciting. And, as we speculated back in the first videos about the Ashes of Ariandel DLC, the next DLC is related to the search of the pigment for the painter, the dark soul of man. As we can see, the new trailer starts with words of Painter Girl regarding it. But, a more peculiar part of the trailer is this one showing a really intriguing statue, depicting Gwyn bestowing, or possibly taking away, a crown upon a hollow, human, undead, figure. A pygmy, most likely. While, other Gwyn's hand may be speculated to show a gesture which kinda invites the pygmy somewhere or for something. Another very interesting moment is this footage, showing some insect, taking that the ringed city seems to be related to the dark, humanity, abyss. May these insects be related to those insects inhabiting the deep mentioned in Nor Miracles? And, of course very peculiar to us is this footage, showing a dragon, which seems to be a boss enemy. I believe that his appearance really reminds us of certain Abyss Dragon description we mentioned in my videos about the Ringed City screenshots, and also etymology, lore video about Millwood. And we'll say a few more words related to this dragon in the second part of the video, which contains some really heavy spoilers. But here we proceed to the spoil a dangerous part of the video. Even though it's really boring, I must note that the following will be some really preliminary stuff, as without complete lore it can't be much more than some rather vague speculations, and this video is made in a certain haste, as I'm really too much excited about the new stuff, and with all these feels about the final DLC of, quite likely, the last Dark Souls game, it may end up weird, and the following will be some really first ideas, so possibly as the more lore will be known, some new theories and meanings might become apparent. But, let's finally proceed to some of the Moor and City DLC names, and since this part of the video is going to contain some really heavy spoilers, please be sure not to watch it if you'd like to avoid the new stuff spoiled to you. So, the first peculiar new name is Shira, and it seems to be the name of the girl wearing armor depicted on one of the concept arts revealed earlier. Namely, this one depicting a pale girl whom, as we mentioned in the video discussing the new screenshots, may possibly bear some resemblance to Priscilla and Yoshka. And possibly the Firekeeper, of course. So, basically the name Shira is a Hebrew female name Shira, whose meaning may be interpreted as poetry or song. Although, for now it's hard to tell how much such meaning might fit her lore. And, I guess we may also note that name Shiro is also somewhat similar to Japanese Shiro, which means white. Of course, it may be simply a coincidence, however, given the appearance of the girl on the artwork, it still appears too peculiar to ignore. And if we consider some wild speculations about the possible similarity between girl on the artwork and some crossbreed half-dragon girls like Priscilla and apparently Yoshka, who, in the turn, have some things in common with certain white scaleless pale rake, the possible white meaning of Shira's name may bear some significance. And let's also not forget the meaning of Gwyn's name, which may be interpreted as white or holy. And actually I believe that there is one very peculiar, yet uncertain thing about possible connection between Shira and Seath the Scaleless, although it's really a very wild speculation, especially now, when the DLC hasn't really been released yet. Among the DLC items there is a certain item named Shira's Crown, whose description mentions that this crown is fashioned with a pearl from a man-eater shell. And I believe that this man-eater shell is very reminiscent of a similar enemy from Dark Souls 1, whom we could find, among other places, in the Crystal Caves, right in front of Seath's boss room. Well, it's indeed a very wild speculation, and man-eating shells could be found in other places as well. But still it's very intriguing and exciting if this pearl indeed provides a link between Shira and the Pale Rake. Especially it's peculiar, if we consider something about Shira's set. I guess I mentioned it in the comments to the screenshot video, but not in the video itself. Basically, the shape of clothes depicted on the artwork is somewhat reminiscent of Gwyndeling's attire. And also attire depicted on statues, which I speculated to be statues of the Nameless Moon in a very old video. So, although I truly hate such baseless and vague speculations, possible relation to both Gwyndelin and Priscilla/Yoshka/Seath could be indeed extremely intriguing. And possibly we'll have more light shed on Yoshka's story, who knows. and since Shira is referred to as a knight, she may be yet another candidate for the role of the last proper knight of Dark Moon Company mentioned by Yoshka. But let's proceed to the next name. Midir the Dark Eater. So, basically this name seems to belong to the dragon shown in the new trailer. And the appearance that reminds us of the concept of Abyss Dragon along with the title of Dark Eater is very intriguing. Especially if we consider the story of Mood and the speculation about possible similarity between the mythograph Norse myths, a dragon who gnaws the world tree, and Abyss Dragon who could possibly be responsible for the rotting of Norwood's ethereal oak or spirit tree. As we discussed it in more detail in my previous video. However, it seems that name Midir is not of Norse origins. Basically, Midir is an old Irish name of a god from Irish myths, and its etymological meaning is somewhat obscure, but, according to some of the theories it may be derived from Old Irish myth meaning to judge, to wait, to estimate. But, what's peculiar about myths regarding Midir is that he's said to have fallen in love with Leato, who, by some scholars, is considered to be a sun goddess. So, who knows, could there be some parallels to Dark Souls Midir's possible relation to some members of Gwyn's family? And another peculiar thing is that Dark Souls Midir soul may be transposed into a moon-related sorcery, while some speculate that mythical Midir could be associated with moon, though such relation is uncertain. Basically such suggestion may be simply coming of something like sun goddess, moon god love story which could be beautiful. However, the me part of the name Midir could be related to Old Irish me meaning month originating from Proto-Indo-European root mens for month or moon. Though, I myself would prefer to know the complete lore to discuss the matter further. But, let's now proceed to the next name, Leato. Which seems to belong to a rather unique, eccentric knight of Anor Londo. Basically, name Leato could be derived from Old Portuguese Ledo, derivative of Latin letus, meaning happy, joyful, and possibly also friendly, if we look into deeper roots, which might be referring to certain eccentric nature of his character. However, learning from past experience with the name Lap, let's also note that original text is in Japanese, and since this language doesn't vowel sounds and uses our syllables instead, Leato could possibly be rather Redo, which could be related to Swedish Redo, from Old Swedish Retho, meaning ready, prepare to face whatever is coming one's way. And, basically returning to the somewhat similar matter with Filianor's name, the game's text still features her name as Filianor but not Firiana, which could provide some interesting meaning in J.R.R. Tolkien's Elvish. So I guess it makes the other peculiar theories of her name that we discussed in an earlier video more plausible. For instance Latin Filia plus Sindarin Anor, which would be daughter of sun, though, it's still somewhat weird to mix real-life Latin plus fictional Sindarin, while purely Sindarin name Anoriel could provide a similar meaning. However, to add to the possible meanings of Filianor's name mentioned in my older video, I'd like to mention the possible meaning of Fili element that I only mentioned in comments. Not precisely Sindarin, as Anor, but in earlier Tolkien's works we may find primitive Elvish root Fili meaning fine, thin, which seems to be related to Quen Filoir, thin, Filma, fine hair. Though, on the other hand, name Osrose is still presented as Oseros in Dark Souls 3 release, so Firianor form still may be somewhat possible, yet way less likely now. And, regarding the sleeping woman from the trailer, it seems that the DLC will feature an entire covenant dedicated to protection of her sleep, Spears of the Church. And, as a really vague and possibly not related thing, we can note that name Gertrude may be interpreted as Spear of Strength or Spear Maiden, from Proto-Germanic AIs as Spear, plus Thruthitho, Strength, or Trut, Maiden, Deer. And as we speculated in a very old video, it seems that Gertrude could be related to Gwyn's family, but that could be not related at all. And, ere we finish this video, I'd like to mention one peculiar item leaked with a new patch. Iron Dragon Slayer Helm. I guess its description may allow to speculate that the great ruins we see at the end of the game are really located in distant future when Lothric Castle, Grand Archives have already crumbled into ruins over wrecks of even older ages, which could possibly explain the nature of a certain new character, whose name, as we discussed in older video, may in fact be translated as Patch, making him similar to certain character familiar to us from older Souls games. Well, of course it's far not everything that may be found in the new DLC, and possibly even more stuff may be extracted from the patch data, but even the stuff we discussed is enormously intriguing, and I apologize for possible typos and everything, as I'm making this video in a hurry because I'm really excited about this intriguing stuff and would like to discuss it as soon as possible. But, of course, all of the stuff discussed in this video is very preliminary, as it's only some speculations, and possibly some more interesting theories will become apparent later, when DLC will be finally released. Personally, I'm very excited about the new DLC, and I hope that the video was interesting to you and made it even more intriguing. So, thanks for watching, and hopefully you like to check out other, more certain lore and etymology or possibly cosplay videos on my channel. Also, you can check out the video description for a link to the etymology video's table of contents, if you're interested in this topic, as it's meant to make it easy to find the discussion of the necessary names.